program was recorded on Monday, July the 15th, in the year of our Lord, 2019. From the John DeVita Recording Studio, located in an undisclosed and clandestine location on the great northwest side of our fair city of Chicago, we once again are pleased to be presenting yet another edition of our monthly roundtable panel discussion show, Meet the Chicago Historians. Now here's the guy who started it all, John DeVita.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Richard Lang from the John DeVita Broadcast Center. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another broadcast of Meet the Chicago Historians on the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network on Monday, July the 15th, the year 2019. Today, the panel will be talking about, well, whatever comes up in their mind. So this is going to be a very interesting program. So sit back and enjoy Meet the Chicago Historians. And now to start today's broadcast, here's our announcer, Mr. Richard Lang.
Let me present today's panel moderator, Tom McKenna.
All right, welcome everyone. Glad you're tuning in. I am filling in for, I'm filling in for probably two people. John Ryan, our normally our moderator. John is still in rehab after a minor stroke and some other health issues. Hopefully, he's going to be recovering and back with us soon. And then our other normal moderator, John, has some activities in Cicero, so he wasn't able to make it. And so, while I was in the washroom, they elected me to be moderator today. And I couldn't get back in time to veto the nomination, so here I am. We did come up with a subject for today's show: Chicago summers, Chicago festivals, and activities. And as John already said, this is Monday, July 15th, and it is approximately 90 degrees outside. The humidity isn't that bad today, but we are in the middle of summer, and as usual in Chicago, heat and humidity. So to start us off today, as we usually do, let's go around and let the members of our panel introduce themselves. And first of all, to my left.
Tommy, I'm Dennis Fitzgerald, a retired Chicago policeman. 33 years that I served, and have a lot of good memories. And but it is to be good. It's good to be in the retirement stage for sure. And as you said earlier, our prayers do go out to John Ryan. Heck of an individual. A lot of good memories with John, and looking forward to a very interesting program today. I must tell you of my fondness for one of my affiliations, and that is that I head up the Police Council of the Knights of Columbus. It's a very unique organization in that it's the only law enforcement council out of this 137-year-old organization with something in excess of 17,000 councils, and yet we're the only police council here in Chicago. And having said that, I'm going to pass the mic to my neighbor here on my left, Bill Kugelman.
Who used to be the Grand Knight of St. Florian, Council 12911. It's unique also because it's the only council in the Knights of Columbus that is for just firemen. And when we started this business of getting a couple of Knights of Columbus councils, I wanted to get a number that I thought that we would appreciate, and that was 911. I had a big to-do with the previous people of St. Michael's, and I won. I got 911.
Very good.
And it was great. We had quite a time, because here in the city of Chicago we have the police and fire councils, which are the only ones in this not nationwide, worldwide organization.
That's correct, Bill.
Yeah, of Knights. So I'm Bill Kugelman, by the way. Spent 46 years on the Chicago Fire Service, and also with the Fire Museum of Greater Chicago, which is at 5218 Southwestern Avenue. We have it's a new organization. Thanks so much to our good friend Alderman Ed Burke, who gave me the old firehouse there, and we have turned that into the museum. We are open because of we can't afford to have somebody there all the time, so we are open with an open house on the fourth Saturday of every month, except for Christmas, except for December. This next one would be on the 27th of July, which is just a couple of weeks away. We are open from 10 until 2, and we would welcome everyone to come. Bring your kids, bring a camera. We have the history of the Chicago Fire Department, probably the history of the fire service of Illinois, of the nation. So my compliments to everyone that helped with that, including our buddy John DeVita. And we just it's all volunteer. Nobody gets any payment out of this. It's all done because we like the job. I'm very, very unhappy, sad that the same doesn't go for the Chicago Police Department. They have had several fly-by-night outfits that have opened up a fly-by-night museum, but nothing like us. Former Superintendent Phil Klein and I met several times looking for a place, and one of these days somebody will take the bull by the horns, and I'm not talking about Klein now, and open up a museum.
Bill, I
that would
have
be nice.
I have a question to ask you.
Yes.
Throughout the many years, we've always had doings at our Holy Family Church. Now I heard that they're closing the church up.
Yes.
And what are just the fire department and all the different organizations that did like we do on Memorial Day? What's going to happen with that now, Bill?
John, I can't answer that. I have no idea. It's just a shame that that's closing. And since we, and I will say lost, Father Tom Mulcrone, things aren't the same. So we're just going to have to wait. I hope it isn't one of those deals where we just, well, I can't use that language on the radio. But we'll get something done.
Yep. Well, as you know, Bill, and the entire panel here with us, I was very dear friends with a gentleman that owned the radio station, Joe Gentile, WJJG.
Yeah.
And Joe used to tell me that a couple times that Holy Family Church was going to be destroyed. And Joe went to the Archdiocese and came up with the money to save Holy Family Church. And this is not once, but it was about several times that Joe had donated big time money to save that church. And right next door to Holy Family Church is St. Ignatius High School, which Joe also went to that school, and he also donated a ton of money to the school. As well as Our Lady of Pompeii, which is over on Lexington. That was another church that Joe Gentile saved from the wrecking ball. And when I heard that Holy Family Church was they had their last mass here a week ago or a couple weeks ago or something. The first thing that came to my mind was when they had the doings there on Memorial Day and all the different activities that go on over there, and it's just a shame that a church who survived the Great Chicago Fire is going to be no more.
John, I don't remember them having their last mass. That was St. Adalbert's.
Oh, that was just right after
yesterday.
Just last Sunday, I think.
Yeah, and so I just don't know. I did get a call from Father Mike. He's the pastor there now, and he doesn't know. He really doesn't know what's going to happen. My dear friend, Father George Lane, the Jesuit, was the one that was at the church, and when they were going to tear it down, and I remember not only Joe, but I had a relation, my brother-in-law, who was very, very heavy bucks guy, would donate. In fact, I'd carry the money there and give it to George to save that place, put a new roof on it and so forth. George now is not around. He's I guess he's got this not Alzheimer's, but the next thing to it. Dementia, and he just is, not the same guy. Now the archdiocese owns that. Mm-hmm. The Jesuits gave it to the archdiocese. That church, when George was there, and they made him the pastor. George called me one day, knowing what I did on my off, and asked if I knew of a locksmith, someone that could open up the safe in the sacristy. And I took a look at it and sent a guy over. Another story I'd like to tell, but I can't do it on on this either. And he opened it. And in there were treasures, absolute treasures, gold, diamonds, jewels, all different kinds of artifacts from over the years, from the time of the Great Fire, that were sent there. Gold vestments, handmade by the nuns in Italy. It was something else. I was very lucky to be there when they opened it up with George, and in fact, I told the locksmith, I'll call him locksmith, that's a nice name, to hit the road. I didn't want him in there with all of that stuff. And they put it on display. Now, I don't know if they still do now, but they used to put some of that stuff on display. And of course, there was a big argument between the Jesuits and the archdiocese on who owned all of that. Whether they've solved that now or not, I have no idea, since George is gone. But there's a big history behind that place.
Yep, there sure is.
Besides, St. Adalbert's, okay, who knows that? But,
where was that church at?
But behind this one, there is just a shame if they let it go down.
Yep. Where is St. Adalbert's at, Bill, that they closed up yesterday?
I want to say roughly around 17th and Ashland, give or take. Somewhere out in that direction. I'm sorry, I don't know exactly.
You're right. I think somebody said 16th and something.
Okay.
Yeah. And those people are upset, as a lot of people are. They're shutting down churches, often. when I moved the statue of Our Lady, from OLA over to the church, they didn't know what they wanted to do with it. It was being desecrated where it was out at Our Lady of the Angels, and Father Joe, asked me to move it, and when I moved it over there, it stayed. It stayed there. It's still there, and it's just going to be a shame. I mean, what are you going to do with it now? OLA is that neighborhood has just changed. Those people aren't going to go back there. Right now, they got a place at Holy Family where they can go. They can be safe. They can have parking, and it's a good deal there.
And a church that they should close down, and I'm not going to mention it, they don't. And just take it from there.
Yeah.
And I think
Well, at least you
everybody
didn't
knows.
mention it, John.
Yeah. But anyways, that
Okay, guys, let's continue with our introductions now
Yeah.
to Bill's left.
I'm your announcer, Richard Lang. I've got a background in teaching modern American and European history. That's basically 19th and 20th century. I've become more and more involved in Chicago's neighborhood history. And with my love for nostalgia and living in the past, I'm involved with a group that recreates old-time radio programs.
Okay.
That's just Dallas. Okay, I turn it over to another Dennis.
Yes, this is Dennis Irons. I'm a retired firefighter with 40 years in the fire service and love it. And presently am the president of the 511 Club, which is a canteen rehab service for Chicago Fire Departments and the Chicago Police Departments. So I just stopped by and got involved with this today, and so far it's been very interesting.
Okay, you're glad you're here.
Thank you, Dennis.
All right, as we usually do in our first segment or couple segments, we talk a little bit about present day news and activities. And I would like to start off with something that I saw this last week, a photograph. I think it was in the LA Times, I'm not sure. I know it was floating around on the different social media outlets. And it's something that was very disturbing to me, and I think when I bring it up, knowing the makeup of this panel, it would be very disturbing to them too. It's a photograph, actually it's two photographs, appearing side by side. One is a photograph of one of the detention facilities on our southern border, and the other photograph is of a Nazi concentration camp. Somehow trying to draw an analogy between the two. Now, anyone that knows anything at all about the history of concentration camps knows that this is actually sickening to even attempt to draw any type of similarity. To my knowledge, I don't recall caravans of thousands of Jews marching through Europe attempting to enter Nazi Germany. I don't recall any Jews attempting to climb over walls to enter concentration camps. I don't recall Nazi Germany telling Jews, please don't come here. And if you come here, we're going to refuse you entry. Now, the members of this panel know that there is no analogy, but the thing that is really disturbing about this is there are a lot of people, especially young people, that do not have any semblance, any knowledge of history. And they might look at this and think that there is some sort of similarity between the two. This is absolutely despicable. To try to draw an analogy between Nazi Germany and the Customs and Immigration Service of the United States. You know, I know the media does not like Trump, as they're afflicted with what now is known as Trump derangement syndrome. But to put this out on the media, and actually, it's absolutely despicable. Thoughts?
You're entirely right, Tom. This I know the picture that you draw interest to, and my feeling is the same way. When I was in the service, I went to a concentration camp in Germany, and that was of course shut down at that time. But it's a terrible place. These people now that are coming from Ecuador, Cuba, Mexico, wherever, Puerto Rico, it's so far from that.
Right, they're coming here on their own free will.
Yeah.
The Jews didn't go to concentration camps on their own free will. I mean, it's to attempt to draw an analogy between those two things is just despicable.
It's a sin.
Unbelievable. It's hard to believe that they have our elected leaders, those elected leaders, have such a lack of knowledge. Well, I mean, it's really unbelievable. How can their constituents support them? But you raise another good point, and equally a good point. You know, you have to recognize the fact that it has to be an indictment on the educational system. What is they just don't educate.
They don't have any. What did we call it when we were in civics? Civics and history. It just isn't happening.
There's high school students that don't know if World War I came before or after World War II.
Yeah.
I'm serious.
That's almost literally true.
Yeah.
They cut out history from the curriculum in many cases.
Yeah, what an indictment on the educational system.
You mentioned Vietnam, and their eyes glaze over. They heard about it, but they have
right.
no knowledge of anything. Korea, they wouldn't know. They couldn't,
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they don't believe that we're the best country in the world. They don't believe it. They don't know any better. They don't know about what's happening in other parts of the world.
And if they had any brains, then they would say, hey, why do these people all want to come here?
You know what?
We must be pretty good.
Sure. You can't ignore the fact they're going to grow up to be good followers. You can't ignore
they say
that.
Millennials, and I think it's a majority of millennials, prefer socialism over capitalism. And to show you how little they know, at a Bernie Sanders rally during the last election, there was a newsman that went up to the young people in line, some of the young people, and there were three males and one female, like college age kids, and he asked them about socialism, and they know Bernie Sanders. I mean, he's openly admitted he's a socialist. He hasn't admitted that he's a communist quite yet, but he definitely admits that he's a socialist. So he asked him, what is socialism? Can you define it? None of the boys would take a stab at it. But the girl, and if this isn't true, then I can fly out of this chair. She said, "Oh, I think socialism is good because it's good to be sociable. That's why I'm on Facebook and I'm on Twitter, because everyone should be sociable."
Wow.
She actually
that
thought
is interesting.
She
Wow.
actually
Yeah,
thought
yeah.
that socialism was about being sociable.
Yeah.
That's how little they know.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
I just wonder how the L.A. Times that you mentioned, Tom, captioned these photographs.
Well, I'm not sure it was the L.A. Times
or
but
whatever
I-
source,
yeah,
but how
yeah.
they
Right.
how they label them.
I mean, it's just, why don't they just say, look, we hate Donald Trump. We are going to put whatever we can, whether it's true, false, substantiated, unsubstantiated, if it's negative about Donald Trump, we will print it. It's unbelievable. The latest guy, the one that was convicted of child molesting in Florida, the billionaire Epstein. Our former President Clinton supposedly was on his private jet. He admitted 4 times. Somebody said he was on there 22 times going to, they call it the Lolita Express. Now, a known friend of this was it Weinstein?
Epstein.
Bill Clinton. After he pled guilty and got out of jail, he had a huge party at his 9 9-story townhouse in New York. And at the party was Katie Couric, trying to think of the commentator that does the, I think it's on Channel 2, the Sunday Report. Anyway, he was there. You know what they mentioned about him? They mentioned him associating with Donald Trump. And the association with Donald Trump is Donald Trump threw him out of his club, Mar-a-Lago, in Florida. That was the association. Now, all these other people, they just didn't mention. So if it's negative about Trump, they'll print it. If it's not negative about...
They'll spin it to be negative.
They'll
spin it.
They'll spin it. And I mean, the thing is to say that they're impartial. I wish I could think of he does the Sunday, one of the Sunday news shows. His wife worked for Hillary, and he donated $50,000.
She's got a very
He
tough name to pronounce, and he was
he donated $50,000 to the Hillary campaign,
Yeah.
but he's on this news program like he's totally impartial.
Yeah.
I mean, isn't that something that if you're spinning a story about a politician, shouldn't it be, known that? I just want you to know that I donated heavily to Hillary's campaign.
But wasn't he a representative or whatever, and got into some kind of trouble too?
No, the commentator that I'm talking
No,
about.
the husband of this. She was like chief of staff for Hillary. I can't.
Oh, that was Weiner.
Yeah.
Weiner, the one that was
Weiner.
one that was sending pictures of his
Weiner.
Yes.
private parts.
Yeah.
For the as soon as I heard he was sending pictures of his private parts, I said, "Well, I don't know who he is, but I know he's not Irish."
Well, isn't the press at this time putting pictures on of the detention centers down on the border, but aren't they using the pictures that were taken during the past administration's
under the
regime?
the Obama
not under
administration.
Trump, but under Obama.
Yeah.
So, I mean, another twist to their fake news reporting.
Yeah.
That's right. A twist or just misleading.
Misleading.
I can't help but to think that the silent majority, they have to assume maybe the responsibility of being, of course this is contradictory, of being a little more vocal, of making a phone call to the news station when they distort, twist, turn it around, they're misleading, or whatever. That little dial those 7 numbers and express your vocal, your opinion, because they can't just get away from this. I mean, the darn media is complicit with a lot of these things, plain and simple.
They sure are.
Well, the silent majority, when it comes time to vote, has got to get out of their house
That's right.
and go vote.
That's right.
And I tell people when they come up, well, why would you do that? Did you vote in the last election? No, I didn't.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then don't tell me any of your concerns, because you had the ability to speak up and you didn't do it.
They've been brainwashed into thinking, their vote doesn't matter. But, it does, and you got to have that input. That's the least you can do.
Yep.
For as good as we have it in this country, for all the, the freedom, our Constitution, freedom of speech, religion, you got to protect it. Otherwise, they will take it away.
I just came back from a week in Montreal, Canada, at a Firebus convention up there, International Firebus Convention. And, you drive down the road we drove. Wow, gas, $1.12. Well, we're paying, well, that's a liter. Now take that 4.5 times that cost. That's what we're paying a gallon in Canada for gas. I couldn't buy a hamburger in Montreal for less than $12.
That's amazing.
That's how expensive it
Even
is
a
living
Slider.
in Canada. I mean, it's unbelievable. And we think we have it so bad.
Yeah.
Travel around and see how great we have it in the United States.
That's right. That's right. Well, these uninformed. They don't know any better. Once again, that indictment on the educational system. But they don't keep up with nowadays. There's so much choices on the TV, but find out what's happening in other countries. On the internet and all that, and find out what their cost of living is, and just what rights they have. How good is their medical coverage?
Right.
And things like that. We have so much here to be thankful for.
Getting back, Dennis mentioned the Knights of Columbus, and Bill mentioned the Knights of Columbus. One of the big Knights of Columbus issues is abortion, anti-abortion, and some of these states that have recently voted to allow. It isn't even. I wouldn't even consider it abortion. The child is born.
It's murder.
So it's actually murder.
Yeah. Premeditated.
And it's mind-boggling to me. I always ask the question, people that were pro-abortion, having 7 grandkids, and seeing the ultrasound images, and in the later terms, when you look at that image, you see a face. You see if it's a moving photograph, you can see a heartbeat. You can see eyes, fingers, toes, and I always asked people, I said, if that's not a living thing, what is it? And I was listening to a discussion about abortion, pro and con, and one of the pro-abortionists, you know what they said that is? It's a parasite.
Oh, gee.
It's a parasite growing inside the woman, and it's the woman's right to be able to remove the parasite from her body. Now, how's that for convoluted thinking?
Yeah.
I saw that.
Unbelievable.
I saw that. Yeah, it is. It
Well,
is.
pardon me, gentlemen. It's almost time for that first intermission. You're listening to Meet the Chicago Historians. We'll be right back.
Hello, friends. Are you looking for a place to have some printing done? Well, I have the right place for you to go, and that is the printing store in Oak Park, Illinois. Call or see Phil Berry at 621 Madison Street, or call 708-383-3638. Phil Berry will sit down with you and help you plan whatever you need printed. Now, his products are brochures, booklets, business cards, catalogs, envelopes, letterheads, flyers, invitations, newsletters, notepads, menus, mailers, manuals, labels, posters, postcards, price list, NCR forms, sale sheets, table tents, pocket folders, and presentation forms. And he also has 1 to 4 color offset printing, digital copying, high-speed copying, graphic designs, typesetting, laminating, foil stamping, die cutting, and imprinting. And his complete bindery service includes booklets, cutting, scoring, folding, numbering, padding, and drilling. So once again, for all your printing needs, call or see Phil Berry at the printing store at 621 Madison Street in Oak Park, Illinois, or call 708-383-3638. They are located at Madison Street and Clarence, just east of Oak Park Avenue. And that's at 621 Madison Street in Oak Park, Illinois, or give Phil Berry a call at 708-383-3638. For all your printing needs, the printing store is there to help you. They're 621 Madison Street in Oak Park, Illinois. And once again, you can call Phil Berry at 708-383-3638.
Now back to today's special edition of Meet the Chicago Historians. Tom?
Okay, welcome back, everyone. In our last segment, I couldn't think of the name of George Stephanopoulos.
Oh, yeah.
He used to host one of the Sunday shows. He was one of the ones after the child molester got out of jail and held a party at his townhome in Manhattan. He was an attendee at the party along with Katie Couric and all of these other people. So yeah, but they associated the child molester with Donald Trump. You know, I mean it's just ridiculous. Okay, let's get back to let's talk what else is going on here. How about raising the taxes in the state of Illinois? Now, here's a question that I have for people. Why would you vote for someone that told you they were going to raise your taxes before they were elected? Usually Democrats, well, I won't single out Democrats. Most politicians, they won't tell you they're going to raise your taxes until after the election is over. But in this last election, so we have a black female lesbian, and again, I do say that we do have one thing in common. We both like white women. She has raised your property taxes, or in part of raising property taxes, and other taxes throughout the city of Chicago. And we have a billionaire governor who has raised our state taxes in many different ways. The gasoline tax
Doubled.
yeah, and it's going to affect the people that he campaigned and voted heavily for him the most. So an average family, low-income family that where someone drives to work every day, it's going to cost them about $100 more a year. You know, right off the top, money that they can't afford. And this is someone that campaigned that he was going to take care of them. I mean, it's kind of, it's really mind-boggling. You know, I think it goes back to education, because young people, they don't associate an election with their daily lives and what happens to them.
Yeah, these, what the Governor Pritzker done, turned out to be 21 new taxes. 21 new taxes. And to go directly to the point that Dennis made earlier, that they figure, well, there's no need for them to come out and vote. I don't know how you referenced it, Dennis, but or you asked them if they voted. Well, no, I didn't vote, or whatever. Well, how do you think these people get in office? Only by virtue of the vote. And when they say, like Tommy just said, you know, that, yeah, we're going to raise the taxes. Little did we know it was going to be 21 taxes. I mean, they get us from every different direction.
And
you know,
they can still do more.
Yeah. Oh, sure. And they will, you know. So, is it true that our pockets are their golden egg? These politicians just know how to spend our money,
And you know, the strange part about it is every major city that is in financial difficulty is controlled by Democrats. Every last one.
Yeah.
Baltimore, Chicago, they're all
Detroit.
Yeah,
all of them.
Detroit, right. They're all controlled by Democrats.
I think it's very important for people to realize that, because when it comes time for this constitutional amendment change in the fall, where they want to be able to go after pensions, etc., or the income taxes, the variable income tax, trust me, that's not going to help the middle income one iota. Mm-hmm. You are going to pay through the nose when they get that done.
You have to monitor the issues. You have to ask the questions, and anywhere strike up the conversation. You know,
too many people that know little or nothing about economics. Our last president was one of them. When he thought that raising the capital gains tax would increase revenue, I remember he was on some talk show, and actually it was kind of shocking, because they so rarely asked any type of difficult question to President Obama, but they asked him about the raising the capital gains tax, and they prefaced it by saying that every single economist says that raising the capital gains tax will decrease income, and lowering the capital gains tax, which has proven true, will increase revenue. For people that aren't familiar with this, I can simplify it. Let's say you owned a nightclub and you were charging $20 at the door and no one was coming in. Do you think you would attract more people to come in your nightclub if you raised the fee at the door or if you lowered the fee at the door? Now, that's a very simplified capital gains, because if the capital gains is lower, you are going to get more people taking advantage of it. It's very simple. And another thing, when the Democrats said this in the election about Warren Buffett, you know, when these people, I mean, I can't believe they're that stupid to make a statement, you know, well, Warren Buffett paid less taxes than his secretary. Total incomplete nonsense. A absolute incomplete lie. What the truth was is Warren Buffett paid a lower tax rate because his income is off capital gains than his secretary did because her income is off her income. Now they knew that, but I used to hear it every time I heard it. I said, "Why? Do they actually believe this is true?" I mean, Warren Buffett paid like, I don't know, $400 million or something, and his secretary paid $20,000. You know, I mean, it's absolute nonsense. But they kept on repeating it, and again, I guess we're getting back to the same recurring theme here. Some people are just plain stupid. They don't have any idea, but they actually believe that. I used to hear that repeated by people.
Well, it's the same thing. The majority of people do not understand about the pension problem in the state of Illinois. It is not the worker that has created the pension problem, whether it be a municipality or the state of Illinois. It is the politicians who have not followed the law and put the appropriate money aside.
Payments being deferred, yeah.
Payments being deferred or taking money out of the pension funds. The worker, they have no choice. That money comes out of their check, whatever percentage it is. They don't touch it. They don't see it. It automatically goes into the city or the state funds, and then the state, oh, wow, the pension fund for whoever it is has $400 million out of it, and we need $300 million to build this new Taj Mahal for some politician, so we'll just take the $300 million out of there, and then we'll repay it over the next 400 years. Well, the money is never repaid. Now we're in a pension crisis, and everybody doesn't understand the truth. It's not the workers that have created this problem. It is the politicians.
You know what? I hate to say it, but it is part of our problem because we let them get away with it. We let them get away with it. We did. It wasn't until the state legislature, 4 or 5 years ago, said the municipalities have to pay what they owe. We went. The pension fund used to send a letter every year of what they owed, and they ignored it. And we let them. You know, I don't know why, but we let them get away with it.
Yep.
Well, the state, by law, has to come in, and I don't remember the exact amount of years, but they have to come in and do an actuary report on every pension fund in the state of Illinois. So they come in, and they'll say, well, you're supposed to be 85% funded at this time. Well, you're not. You're only 40% funded. But so we'll give you another 10 years to bring it back up. Instead of penalizing the municipality or the pension fund, they just lengthen the time.
Absolutely.
And you know, you're taking pennies out. You're not paying the pauper. It's ridiculous. You know.
You know, that was not that it just started with him, but it really gained popularity with Old Man Daley. He just took money out, and he knew the people in the pension funds and, the people that he put in there, they just kept taking the money out. And we fought this thing for longer than I come on the job, and it never got paid back. And what they want to do we should all. I'd love to give the guy a big hug, and I'll even give him a kiss. The guy that put the law in, I guess you'd call it a law, or in the Constitution that you will not mess with the pension fund.
Yeah, that was done.
I don't remember
that was done
exact
about 3 or 4.
words.
But the difference being in Old Man Daly's era, the pensions were well, I don't think they were ever fully funded, but they were funded like in the 70 or 80%.
Yeah.
But now it continued down, and now the last I heard, the police pension fund is only like 22% funded. Well, now we're getting down to the nitty gritty, and what's really keeping them afloat is because of the economy, thanks to the new administration. In the first quarter of this year, which has just recently ended, they say $100,000 investment in the stock market would have gained you $20,000, about 20% on an average. Some funds better, some lower, but that's a hell of a good thing, and it's great for our pensions. But again, this isn't going to last forever.
The talk in the State House now is, and I can only speak on firefighters' pensions, they're floating the idea of taking a community that might be 80% funded and putting them with 4 other communities that are only 10% funded.
Yeah, I heard about that.
Spreading that money out amongst the poor funded pensions so it helps them. Well, why don't you just force the people that are not putting their mandates, not following mandates, and make them do it? Why do you want to take from a good group that's following the law and give to another one that isn't? That makes absolutely no sense to me. I mean, that's socialism.
Yeah.
I mean, when you really get down to it, that's socialism. We'll take from the people that got it and give it to the people that don't want to have it. It's ridiculous.
And another thing that bothers me about, occasionally, when you run into people, they want to know what you did for a living, and they want to know, or if you're, if you're applying for a loan, and they want to know what your income is, and say I'm retired, and then they naturally want to know what the retirement income is, and they say, "Wow, you guys, that's a pretty good deal." I mean, these financial people, they deal with a lot of different people, and they know what's a pretty good sized pension and what isn't a good sized pension. And my response to that is, well, you know what? When I was leaving my house at 11 o'clock at night on Christmas Eve, leaving my family and friends to go work the Dan Ryan Expressway in 6 inches of snow, nobody ever came up to me and says, "Man, you got a great job here, working out here in the Dan Ryan and Christmas Eve. Man, boy, you got it made." So what I got, I earned. I deserve. I don't have to apologize to anybody because of what I got. But to get back to the original point I was going to make, it's overwhelming the statistics of people that have absolutely no money invested for retirement other than Social Security, and some don't even have Social Security. And if you think you can live on Social Security, you're crazy. And the longer it goes, the older this country gets, and it's really going to hit the fan. I mean, and I don't know what the answer is, but again, talking to some kid that's 21 years old about you should put some if you don't have a pension, you should put some money into some type of investment portfolio. They're worried about where they're going to get their next beer. So
what the police pension? What do you give 9 1/8?
Yeah,
like we did.
Right.
Okay, when we went over a lot of this stuff, and I won't name any names about who our director of political enforcement was, but they spend all their time down in Springfield naturally, and they get hooked. They get hooked with the politicians.
The Stockholm Syndrome.
And yes, exactly. And one of the things was, 9 1/8. Why don't you make it 10%? And they came back. Never forget that they came back and said, "Oh, wait a minute. We can't say 10. 9 and an eighth would be fine. And I remember one of the guys, Andy, was with me, and he said, "Wait a minute." He says, "When I go to the gas station and I pay whatever it was there, and it's 49 and 9/10, why don't they make it 50?" Well, that's just, yeah. And that's exactly what this is too. They were afraid that making it 10 would cause a lot of
On
problems.
sale, $1.99 sounds
Yep.
so.
Yeah,
Better
yeah,
than two.
yeah. And that was these guys that were, and I will say, hooked in Springfield. They were hooked, and a lot of them went off the job, and they got jobs down there.
See, the problem is, again, a lot of people are jealous when someone has something better than they, I mean,
Sure.
that's understandable, that's human nature. But people that don't understand about economics, it's not a zero-sum game. If you have $1 million and I have $10, taking $100,000 from you in taxes or by whatever means, or just putting a gun to your head, I'm still going to have $10. It's not going to come to me. That's where these people, we got to tax the 1%. That isn't going to help them in the least. As a matter of fact, it will probably hurt them. Milton Friedman, a famous economist, I think it was under Nixon or whatever, and it was kind of interesting because he said, the more millionaires you have, the more people making that kind of money, you are better off. Now, people find that hard to believe because they don't understand anything about economics. He said penalizing rich people is not going to help you. It's probably going to, in the long run, hurt you. Now, that's hard for people to believe, but again, it comes back to what we were talking about.
Tom, I mentioned my brother-in-law before. He used to be a Chicago copper, and he was like the big shot at the Board of Trade. Big money, and we would talk a few times. And the one time we were going somewhere, and he said, "Bill," he says, leave your car parked here." He says, "We got a ride." So up pulls this big Cadillac limousine, and the guy driving it looked familiar, but I just didn't know until later on. He was a Chicago police lieutenant. And I find out later, in talking to Gene and a couple others, that Gene rents that, and he pays I forget what his name was to drive him around as a chauffeur, and like I say, I forget who this was. I think it was Dick Mosier. Said, he writes that all off. He writes it all off. And I'm thinking to myself, what in the hell is this going on? I mean, Gene was a very, a tip from him was a 20 or a 50 or 100. But that's what went on. So I talked to him a couple of times. We were close. And I said, what about the money bit? And he had horses. He had a place in Florida, and he had a horse that won the Preakness one year. And he says, "Bill," he says, "do you realize if I just cut everybody off and that, do you realize how many people depend on me for their living and for their monies and for their work?" He said, there's a lot of them. So, and I believed him, I believe it. I see what he was talking about.
If a person, a normal business owner, is making money and all of a sudden he starts losing money on whatever he's doing, what's the first thing he's got to do is cut expenses.
Exactly.
And if that's staff, guess what? Whoever's there making the money is going to lose a job. Now tell me that by doing that to the rich people,
right.
That's
And once again, politicians talking about helping a certain group or a certain economic group of people by raising people's taxes, especially people that are making a lot of money. and they were smart enough to be able to make that amount of money, how do they think they're going to respond? Do they think they're going to say, let's say, what if it's a service or a product or whatever? Do you think that these people are going to say, oh, well, we got our taxes raised, we're just going to have to eat it? What do you think they're going to do? They're going to say, we'll raise the price of our service, we'll lay off people. So, what again, and I know I'm repeating myself, which I will do rather frequently, but knowing nothing about economics, you think something that is going to help you by raising a rich person's taxes, in effect, is actually going to hurt you. You know, and again, I don't know, is it education? Is it
Common sense.
common sense?
They should interview some of these people in the front lines for those protests, you know, for $15 an hour or whatever the proposed rate is. There has to be an effect on that. You know, the business, the owner can't absorb that. You know, what's going to happen? It's pretty obvious what's going to happen.
I mean, UPS, when they said you have to provide health care for people that work full time, 40 hours a week. So, guess what UPS did? He said, "Okay, Bill, you're not working 40 hours a week.
Yep.
You're working 38 hours a week."
It's been the story in
Yeah.
retail for many years
Yeah.
now.
Oh yeah, right. I mean, you know, what again? Do they think these people are stupid that they don't know how to get around this? You know, a company like UPS probably has 100 tax attorneys on their payroll.
Yeah.
Yeah, hey, they just tax us. What do you think we should do? And then they put their heads together and come up with the solution. Again, the $15 an hour thing.
Well, $15 an hour. What did McDonald's do? They put an automated order machines there.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, they did.
Yeah.
Duh.
Yeah.
Doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out why they
and-
did that.
And or other companies paid them the $15 an hour, but took away their health care.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or vacation or other
Yeah,
benefits.
benefits are going down. It's hard to believe, though, looking back in the Eisenhower years through the early Kennedy years, the tax rate was much higher than it is now. 80, 90%, rather. It was often argued as confiscatory.
Right.
Yeah. Now, that's changed to some degree, but again, with the loopholes and ways to get around this, it really didn't impact, I'm sure, many people who had a clever enough lawyer to work on this.
You know, the thing is that the whole mindset of this country, you know, I was talking to my sister the other day. She's a retired school teacher. And I said, Margaret, when we were growing up, or even when we were going to school or whatever, did it ever cross your mind that if we weren't able to support ourselves, we could look to the federal government? And she said, no, of course not. No, nobody. I mean, in my situation, you never thought, well, you know, if you don't go to work, we can go on, we can get this, we can get food stamps, we can get, I mean, it never entered your mind. But it seems like the mindset now in this country is, you know, the government is the answer to our problems.
Socialism.
Right.
And then it's eroded the work ethic. You know, I'm the youngest of 7, and you know, a snowfall, you'd be out shoveling sidewalks and all that. So I tell the young lad next door, and I said, you know, on the back of the shovel, you put a dollar sign, and you know, will shovel, so that message can be read, you know, from the bay window, and you can make. If you can't make $100, now he's a young kid, but so today's times, if you couldn't make $100 on a weekend, you know, big corner homes and all that. But he doesn't absorb the message. He's not really into $100 isn't that much for him.
Even if you told them it was tax-free,
Yeah.
they wouldn't know what it was about.
No. So that work ethic has been eroded by virtue of the socialism, the free this, that, and the other. And, of course, the parents that spoil the kids and all that. The work ethic's not there, you know.
You mean it's wrong to give a trophy to everybody that participates, not just a winner?
There you go. Isn't that
Yeah,
something?
You know, it's unbelievable. Yeah.
Unbelievable. Yeah. Well, we don't want to psychologically adversely affect them. What are you talking about? Winner is a winner's a winner.
Winner is a winner. Loser is a loser. But, you know, teach your children to be winners.
Yeah.
It means a lot in the work ethics and in the workplace.
Oh, sure. And the way it'll carry you through life, you know, and the way you provide for your family, it all derives from that, you know.
Yeah, like I say, people, you know, I forget whose quote it was. It might have been Reagan that, you know, the government. Uh-oh, we're getting shot at here. Well, this is Chicago.
In our
folks.
lower bunker.
Well, excuse us while we take cover.
Yeah. Somebody's trying to cross the moat.
But they said the government isn't the answer to your problems. The government is the problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know?
Reagan said that in effect.
Yeah.
He certainly did.
Or the
Yes, he
the worst,
did several
the,
times.
the worst thing you can hear. I'm with the government and I'm here to help.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
boy.
Yet the budget jumped up quite a bit under Reagan.
Yeah.
He didn't.
It's just the left. They say, well, we want to do health care for everybody in the future and all that. Well, how good is the health care you can do such a good job supposedly? How good is the health care on the Indian reservations? And prior to the improvements with the veterans, how good was that veterans health care? And now you want to do it for the whole country?
You know, one of the things that bothers me when they talk about and they quote, you hear all different statistics about people in this country that don't have health care. There is no one in this country that doesn't have health care. They don't have health insurance, but they have health care. No matter who you are or what you are, you can go into any licensed facility, and by law they have to treat you.
Yep.
So there is health care. There's no health insurance.
But like Dennis said earlier, they like to twist the facts, the truth, and let people think that, well, there's no health care. But to your point, Tommy, it's always been there. The medical hospitals couldn't turn a patient away,
They do it in Mexico. The head of the when meter maids were still under the police department, the daughter of one of them was in a car accident in Cancun. They rented a Jeep. They stabilized her, but they wouldn't treat her. They medevaced her back to the States at a very great expense, and she died. So much for Medicare.
Well, that needs
Health-
publicity. Then.
Health. Oh yeah, health coverage.
Well, Dennis, you talked about let the government or Tom talk, if you want a problem, let the government get involved. But I have some friends that are presently right now at the Navajo Reservation on a church mission group, and there's homes out there. Now, how long ago did we put Indians on reservations?
A good 100+ years ago.
There are people out there on that reservation that they have never been given electricity yet. Now, they're not living out in the highest, nicest area in the United States, but they do not have electricity yet, some of them.
Wow.
The government has not given it to them. Wow. We went to a church mission group up in South Dakota, and they were given a stipend to live on a reservation. You moved off of the reservation, you lose your stipend forever. They want you to stay there. The federal government does not want you to leave.
Pardon me, gentlemen. We'll be right back after these messages of interest and importance.
Do you suffer from pain? Do you know someone that has constant pain of their low back, neck, shoulder, knee, or wrist? Have they tried medications, exercise, physical therapy, or chiropractic, and nothing seemed to make it better? Well, I may have your answer. Why not try a napropath? Hi, everybody. This is Dr. Wayne Chikowitz, and I've been practicing 30 years treating pain. I'm board certified and hold a diplomate in pain management. For your convenience, we have 2 locations. In Cicero, 3602 South 61st Avenue, 708-656-7000, or in Villa Park at 122 West St. Charles Road, Suite 1A, 630-833-4007. Why not try a napropath and stop the pain today?
Now back to our discussion. Tom? Sorry.
Okay.
Short break.
We're back. Thank you for staying tuned. Our topic today is going to be Chicago summers, activities, festivals. Here's a question I have. I'm going to throw this out because the panel members are mainly around the same age. When you were growing up in Chicago, did you have any air conditioning in your home?
No.
Now my answer to that is no.
No, not here. We had a fan in the window, that's all.
So now the follow-up question: how did we do it? How did we survive? Well, I guess
We
you
had
can't.
to. We didn't know any better.
Right, you didn't miss something that you never had.
Open the window, and some people had fans.
And plus, you could still like sleep on. I know when I was growing up, we had a back porch, and when it got real hot, we went out on the back porch and.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And not that I knew that much about them, but I don't think the taverns even had air conditioning at that time.
Very few.
either.
That used to be a big sign. I remember in movie theaters.
Yeah.
They used to have the big banners, air conditioning. Because I always remember we used to go to the Ogden, 63rd National, and I always remember going in the summer days like this. Actually, some hotter days like this, and walking out the door after the double feature. You thought you were walking into hell.
Right.
And then knew that.
Right.
Well, my first air conditioning experience, I was 20. I had just come on the job, and I had a window unit, and that was the first air conditioning. Now of course, I have central air. Thank God.
Something else. Maybe it's getting a little bit off in left field, but back then, like 1950 to late 40s and all that. I remember as kids. So none of the halls or whatever had air conditioning. So if you're going to a wedding or whatever, but there always happened for the kids. If we could access a hunk of that dry ice, we'd have the biggest. Because you couldn't touch it with your hand or anything. But I remember to put it down in the toilet or whatever. It would bubble up a storm. But maybe I'm getting out in left field. But there was no such thing as air conditioning, and so for the drinks and all that or whatever. There was the medium used was dry ice, but different era ago.
Or going to a pool or running under a hose or stuff like that.
Yeah.
All the hydrants open.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And the guy going down the street with the ice truck.
Staying
With the horse.
outside in general, which a lot of people, because of crime, are fearful of doing.
Yeah.
Like that tragic 1995, those hundreds of deaths in Chicago.
Yeah.
A lot of
800
people were simply
something,
afraid to leave their room and open a window or let alone get outside.
The all those years when I come on and the fire department and that my thoughts when somebody asked me how do you do it, that I said, well, you know what, you can always put on more clothes in the winter. You can't take off just so many in the summer and that.
Right.
And they said, well, how about the firehouses and that? And I said, well, most of the guys go to some business that's closing down and they'll grab the air conditioning unit. We got a couple of electricians and that and set it up, and we'd have to do it on our own. He says, you mean the city doesn't? No, the city doesn't do anything. What about the rigs? Well, that's when we rode on the back step or the side, and you just suffered if you had to get off and go do some work. And now, at this era, with the millennials, like you say, when I was president of the union, I would get reports from one of the guys that was head of the safety and health guy. And I'd say, what's going on, man? He'd say, he says, we got this and this. And he says, we've got to get this city to repair the air conditioning. I said, what are you talking about? He says, well, the air conditioners on these rigs aren't working. I never knew we even had air conditioning on the rigs and that. But here now these guys, these millennial punks, spoiled brats, they're worried that they don't have air conditioning on. He said, well, hey,
When did
the
squad
coppers
cars
have all
become
got
air
these
conditioned?
cars.
We had no air in the squads. Well, I worked the Dan Ryan Expressway, and somebody put a thermometer in on the floor. It was 115 degrees.
Oh.
And the floor of the squad car working the Ryan, because those were the bigger. We had the 396. We had bigger engines.
Oh.
And there was very little shade on the Dan Ryan. But anyway, continuing in the growing up in summers in Chicago, I'm going to ask about what's your fondest memory growing up in Chicago about things to do, and I'd start off with mine. a big, huge thing was being able to go to Rainbow Beach. We took the bus. We didn't have a car. And we took the bus all the way from 63rd and Ashland to Rainbow Beach, which is like 74th in the lake. And that was, I mean, we'd look forward to that for weeks. We'd go maybe twice or 3 times a year. And I never forget getting there and throwing the blanket down and being able to run out into the lake, especially on a day like this. I mean, it was like you were in heaven. And the other big trip, summer trip, was going to Riverview.
Yeah.
And again, we take the bus over there, and then that was maybe if you were lucky, you got there twice, but usually just once a year, and going over there. And then some of those buildings there and the rides were air conditioned.
Or the relief of the shoots.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
That was the big one.
yeah.
That was a big one.
Dennis, tell me about it.
But Tommy, I agree with you. I remember North Avenue Beach, and to put that towel out on the sand and all that. And then I remember, boy, when transistor radios came.
Oh, nice.
Now I'm on the beach with my blanket. I got my music right there, right? And I still have that transistor radio. It's at home on top of the piano from that era. But I'll tell you another thing, just to go in another direction. I'm the youngest of 7, and we had picnics. We'll go out to Banks Lake, and
right.
you go to the picnic ground. You set up your table and everything. Of course, you made sure you had everything because the stores weren't open on Sunday.
Oh.
True.
You know, you weren't going to get no charcoal or lighter fluid or whatever. And then my parents might go to a golf course in the general there, and we were in the picnic ground. But whatever, you chase the chipmunks. I can't remember the last time I seen a chipmunk, whatever. All the pesticides have killed them. But, the picnics were good memories. The beaches were good memories. I tell you, I really wouldn't trade those times for for nothing.
No, they were good. We lived not too far from the lake, Broadway over to the lake, so we were there quite often, and it got to the point where I was getting older, so my folks would let me go with somebody else, some older kids or another parent, and that all kind of ended when the polio deal came about.
That was always a scare.
And nobody was allowed. That was going to give you polio if you went down in the lake, and we were not too far from the Edgewater Beach Hotel, which is still around there, and
what is that? It's not a hotel, but I think is it condos?
it's
now,
a condo or something. Yeah.
the main
Well, the
building's
hotel was
still
torn down, but there's a condo there now.
Yeah,
It's part of
yeah.
the grounds.
But that was a lot of fun, and like you say, Riverview, we could just take either the bus or the
Well, sure, Riverview. Yeah.
Riverview. That was just great, and my dad worked there on his day off once in a while, but another thing we got too are the zoos. We had our pick of the zoos. We had Brookfield and we had Lincoln Park.
Yeah.
And it always seemed to be that it was always cooler there for some reason.
Yeah.
Navy Pier,
Yeah.
You'd go off of there. That was always a cool spot, nice spot to go. So.
Another memory, Bill, if I could, you mentioned his name earlier, Frank Fagia from Jimmy's Hot Dogs. I remember my grandmother lived at 1400 block, 1448, thereabouts on Avers. And she would put her nickels and dimes together and send us over there. So it's like in 1953, 1950, to Jimmy's Hot Dogs.
Okay.
Because it was we could walk there.
Yeah.
And not that it's a big thing, but then again,
still
Jimmy's
there.
is kind of like a landmark. He's been around.
still there and still going strong.
He's still, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. In the same recipe, too.
Yeah, that's right.
Do you guys know Tony Emilio?
It sounds familiar. I can't place it.
Yeah, he was a regular at the Mass
Yeah?
for a while. Yeah, I don't know where he retired out of, to tell you the truth. His kid is on the job now too, but that's where he started out, is with a hot dog
Oh, cart? The push cart?
Yeah. And he wasn't too long ago, and I don't remember what it was, what the deal was, whether it was the kid getting married or or an anniversary or something. He invited us all over. He lives in Park Ridge now. His wife Joanne was, I think she was a sergeant with the sheriff.
Oh.
Yeah, she worked in the courts. But go over there, and there it is. He found it somewhere. Stainless steel cart, his original stainless steel cart, and that's what he had for us to eat, hot dogs. Yeah. But yeah,
Those
that was
sidewalk
all
hot dog
fun.
vendors, they were
Yeah.
throughout Chicago.
Yeah.
You know, I remember Grand in Harlem and whatever. And that was a treat
Yeah,
too.
you don't see a lot of, you see Hispanic food carts.
Yeah.
You see a lot of those, but no more.
How much are they regulated now? How safe are they?
Yeah, well.
I go down Montrose and I always see these, and I don't know what the hell they're selling in that, but it's some kind of, I don't know, it's coffee or donuts or
The big thing,
hot
the
dogs.
tortillas, and they sell corn too.
tortillas,
Mexican
corn,
corn.
yeah, they're there all the time,
Yeah.
and must be doing something well.
Yeah, something tells me they're not overly regulated.
Oh no.
I know to sell food. I know a guy, Mike Roach was his name. He was in K9. He had a food. He had a hot dog cart, and I mean to have it at Chicago code, you can't believe it. I mean, you got to have a double sink. You got to have. I think you have to have running water. You have to have so.
I had to take I want to say it was a $300 food preparation course. It was mandated at the time. It was back in the 70s or something. So I had to take the college course to appease the city mandates at that time. I don't know if they're that strict or stringent now, or if they waive a lot of that stuff. I don't know.
Because of the
Supposed to-
language. yeah.
bartenders are supposed to take the course.
Oh,
Oh yeah, there's a place at Montrose and Milwaukee. It's called Baristas or whatever it is, and that's what it is. It's a school for bartenders.
But,
Under
the-
six
but, the,
corners,
but, the, ci-
too,
but the
yeah,
city,
yeah.
supposedly there's a city ordinance requirement that you have to complete this.
yeah.
And I guess they talk about you're not supposed to serve people that are drunk, and
Yeah.
like this isn't common sense. And I guess health issues about washing your hands and whatever.
Well, my memories are I was raised very much in the Portage Park neighborhood, the big park on the northwest side of Chicago.
Right.
And that was a frequent refuge. This is in the days before Mayor Daley put up the iron fence, and the park seemed more open.
Yeah.
Maybe officially it closed at 10. But I think a lot of us stayed there
They have
later, had a
they have
pool and
big,
exercise
yeah, they have
area.
they have a big swimming pool there.
Like
don't
Oh
they?
yeah,
Olympic
very much
size.
so. Very
Yeah,
much so.
huge.
Olympic sized pool.
Yeah.
And right across the street, if you wanted it, nice ice cream parlor.
Uh-huh.
But another refuge at times, and maybe not so much for the heat, but just for a diversion, the Olson Waterfall, Pulaski and
oh, yeah,
Diversey.
I remember
that
that.
was a spot.
The northwest corner.
Exactly right.
What a
yeah.
beautiful
Now
thing.
it's just a little parking lot.
Yeah,
But
it was a
those days
tourist
everything.
attraction, so,
Was it?
so,
Yeah.
to, so to speak. I mean,
Yeah.
the community would come out.
Oh yeah,
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 It was Marshall Fields.
yeah. That's what it. Marshall Fields. Yeah.
Marshall Fields.
yeah, yeah.
Now,
Now
whether
own it,
they
right.
had something to do when they went to Macy's,
Yeah.
and they completely shut it down. I
Yeah.
don't know. The last
I think
time
by
I
the
was,
late 70s, I believe it
yeah,
went
I was
down.
detailed over in the 7th Battalion, and it's a long time ago too. But it was still running then.
Yeah.
So it's.
So I think in general, a lot of us, when we were young, we took hot weather for granted, knowing in the back of your mind that however bad it was around Chicago, just think of St. Louis and New Orleans. It's got to be a lot more humid, a lot worse. So we
Yeah.
made it. We survived.
You know, Rich, you're talking about Olson Rug over at across from the firehouse, Engine 91. Years ago, they used to at Halloween. They used to have the big Halloween display out there.
Yeah.
In the summertime, they have the waterfalls,
Yeah.
and at Halloween they have the Halloween display. Well, after they closed it down. That Halloween display was moved out to Sunny Acres on North Avenue, way out past Route 59, almost to the DuPage Airport out there. And I had gone out there to buy some Halloween stuff for figurines and stuff for for here in Norridge and up in Elkhorn. And here I see that that display set up out there. Sunny Acres on North Avenue. It's on the north side of the street, just past Route 59.
Wonder if after all these years, if it's still there.
I don't know. I haven't been out there in quite a few years, Rich, but I used to go there all the time. My mom and dad used to take my sister and I. We used to go to Olson Rug and look at it, and then
And you have a lot of Native Americans there supposedly
yes,
dancing.
yes, yep.
Interesting place. Something going on almost every night. Like a miniature Riverview in a way.
yes, that's for Riverview. Don't get me started on Riverview.
By the way, while you're on there with us, John, happy birthday to you.
Well,
Tomorrow's John's birthday.
Happy birthday, John.
to you,
Happy
pal.
birthday.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. It's a pleasure to be 18 again. I mean, 81.
Yeah.
John, is today the 15th of July
No,
your birthday?
tomorrow's my birthday.
Tomorrow.
Yeah.
And many more.
There you go.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. I appreciate it.
You know, I think somebody just mentioned the Wisconsin Dells. Did somebody mention that after we got it, when our family finally got a car, that was another super huge trip to drive up to the Wisconsin Dells for a couple days.
It's near my place.
You go on the boat. They still have the boats.
Oh yeah.
The upper and lower Dells.
It's gotten so completely.
Yeah, those theme parks. When none of that was on that side of the like the other side of the dam, I think they call it. None of that was there because I took my kids up there, you know, when they were younger, and I was shocked.
Home of the
how it
ducks.
goes. Yeah.
The military ducks.
Well, up that way, I still like, I think, Baraboo a lot more than the Dells.
It's a circus town.
Well, yeah, exactly. Circus Road.
Yeah, they don't know what they're going to do now that the circus is shut down.
Shut down, yeah.
Yeah,
I'm surprised. I'm surprised that nobody bought the name or revived that, because that was pretty big for kids to go to the circus.
Yeah.
Is that World Museum still going on? I don't know. I haven't been up that way to much.
Oh yeah, no, it's going, and they've got a lot of those animals they got a real nice zoo there in Baraboo. A lot of those animals are there, and but they just don't know what's going to happen. Yeah.
You know, back in 1966, 67, 68, Tommy Bartlett had the Dancing Waters and had his big doings up there.
She's got to go out.
And Franklin McCormick used to broadcast his all-night showcase from the Up Hoff's restaurant up there in Wisconsin Dells. He would go on the air at 11 o'clock and go off at 5 o'clock in the morning.
That's a memory.
And because such a great person I am that I enjoy radio broadcasting, I used to drive up there with, at that time was my fiance, but then later we got married. But we used to leave here, Illinois or Chicago, at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, drive up to Elkhorn, have supper with my mom and dad at the house up there. Then she and I would get and go up to Wisconsin Dells, and we stayed there Friday night, Saturday night, and Sunday night, and come back Sunday. And I would be sitting right in front of Franklin McCormick while he was doing his broadcast. And I have his picture right here, Franklin McCormick, the all-night showcase.
The voice.
Oh yeah.
And I think the story is, John, that he passed away not on the air, but he was at the studio.
You want to know something, Rich?
I think I heard that. Yeah.
Can I tell you a little story about that?
Sure.
My father-in-law was a lieutenant on Engine Company 56 over at Berry and Levitt. This one particular day, he was detailed to Engine Company 78, which is the firehouse behind Wrigley Field. In that firehouse is an ambulance Company 6. So my father-in-law wanted me to come over to Engine 78 to meet the firemen over there, and I was with the 511 Club at that time. And we were sitting at the table having supper. All of a sudden, hello, Ambulance 6. You have an inlator call, WGN 2501 Bradley Place. So the fireman says, come on, John, jump in the ambulance, take a ride with us. I said, okay. So we go down Addison Street, come up to up to the studios, and Frank Pisani, who was a doorman at that time, is waving us, hurry up, and so we grabbed the stretcher, we grabbed the inhalator, we grabbed some other stuff, and he takes us into the studios, and who was laying on the floor but Franklin McCormick. And just a few weeks before this, I met him. I was with Franklin McCormick at Wisconsin Dells. And I was with Franklin McCormick the night that the Aragon Ballroom closed its doors for the final time in February 1964. And I helped pick Franklin up off the floor, put him on a stretcher, and I helped push the stretcher out to the ambulance. And he was gone. So
I don't think he was that old of a man.
no, he wasn't. No, he wasn't.
How old was he when he?
I'll give it back to you guys. I think I have it in my office when he was born and when he died. So you take it away, and I'm going to go check my calendar in my office.
And I think he was a rather handsome man. I remember seeing his photos in a lot of the ads for Meisterbrow. Look at that. Okay.
There he is, right here.
That's the man.
Yep.
My grandmother was in love with him. Yeah.
Yeah, he did have a very distinctive voice.
He would open his book of memories frequently.
Right.
Yeah. You lost everybody. No.
So getting back to the Wisconsin Dells. As I said earlier, I was shocked. The last time I hadn't been there in probably 20, I don't know, maybe 30 years. And after I got married and I brought 4 kids up there, I was actually shocked to see how built up it was. I mean, it's really been commercialized.
Yeah.
When we first went there, it was just the downtown area and smaller. They were more like motel type, where you drove and you
Few
parked,
restaurants, yeah.
and you parked in front of your room in your hotel. And then now on the other side of the dam, they are huge hotels and the water parks and racetracks.
Without being too cruel, would you characterize it now as a tourist trap?
Oh yeah, it definitely it's one of those areas where it's so commercialized, it's almost good. It's like one of those things where you say it's so bad it's good.
Yeah.
Well,
One of those
now-
cases where I'd rather remember the way it used to be.
Oh yeah.
It's like trying to go home again. It never lives up to your expectations. And I think
Yeah,
I'd rather keep my memories
and
of it.
price-wise, compared then later on when the kids got a little older, we went to Disney World, and price-wise, it was almost as much to go to the Wisconsin Dells as it was to go to Disney World.
Wow.
I was
and then-
comparing it to Great America on the way up there,
Yeah.
too. Yeah.
Franklin
I don't know how my father did it
No
with
more
7 kids.
5-cent rides or whatever. Hell, we had a
Yeah.
Riverview.
Okay, Franklin McCormick was born in 1906 and died in 1971.
Not even in the late
Yeah.
60s then. That's
Yeah.
interesting. Thanks
Yeah,
for looking that up, John.
1906 to
06 to
1971.
Talking about
Yeah.
Franklin McCormick.
Yeah, I remember many times in the 60s making the late drive to Madison. I was going
Yep.
to grad school. Then you'd hear him on WGN
Yep,
radio.
WGN from 11 o'clock in the evening until 5 o'clock in the morning. The all-night Meisterbrow
yeah. Very
showcase.
distinctive.
Yep, very.
Who was that one that had that signature salutation? Good day. Who was that? Good day.
Oh, that was Paul Harvey.
Paul Harvey. That's
Yeah,
right.
there's
Yeah.
another institute.
Paul Harvey. And now for the rest of the story.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yep,
Yeah.
those were the good old
He died about
days.
10 years ago. I don't know if his wife is
Yeah.
still living, but no.
You don't see that talent now. It's not there. I fail to see it. I don't know.
Well,
the caliber
plus,
of
plus Paul Harvey was very patriotic and a loyal American, and that's laughed at now.
yes.
Right? Yeah, the young people that if you
Yeah.
now you don't respect the country. well, not even young people. The governor of New York, Mario Cuomo, made the statement. This was last year. America was never, or there was nothing great about America.
Yeah.
Words that affect you.
I mean, are you kidding me that a governor of a state the size of New York would actually make a statement like that? Nothing. I mean, let's start with the Revolutionary War, and move on from there. With all the wars, we were talking about Nazi Germany, the troops, the American troops, laying down their lives to defeat the Nazi regime. That wasn't great. I mean, what is this guy? I mean, again, is he that stupid, or did he just say it for political reasons? Or I mean, I have no idea.
This de Blasio said something this morning that I don't remember what it was, but it was very off key.
A statement like that should
goofy.
put him out of office.
Yeah.
It should put him out of office. But you know what it is? He's blinded by the hatred of Trump.
Yeah.
You know, make America great again. America was never great. Really? Do your ears hear what you're saying?
Well, just being able to make a statement like that in this country is great. Because in a lot of countries, you'd be executed for it.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
That's what we fought World War II for.
Yeah.
Yeah, the millennials heroes, Che Guevara, Stalin, Lenin, Mao. These people are responsible for hundreds of thousands of people being just executed.
Yeah.
How somebody could make a hero out of Stalin.
Yeah, right.
Might as well make it out of Hitler.
Well, we better wake up, because otherwise we will be defeated from within. Who made that statement? Who quoted those words? I think it might have been Stalin. You'll be defeated from within. You know.
Yeah, when you think of somebody as recent as Walter Cronkite. Now, I think politically he was maybe left of center. He was known as a liberal, but he never came across as anti-American.
Yeah.
To my knowledge, maybe, but
And
it's only in recent years.
The thing is, I can see people being anti-government. I can see them being disappointed with their government, but the country. I mean, we've got military personnel stationed around the world. Keeping places free and keeping freedom in some of these countries. I mean, to ignore things like that, to foster hatred for law enforcement. I mean, for what reason?
That's why they all want to come here too.
Yeah, right.
Okay, well, let's see.
Yeah, who's this old one? Who is this?
You've been listening to Meet the Chicago Historians, and we thank you for it. We'll be right back.
Well, friends, guess what? At last, the warm weather is here. And, of course, warm weather can bring some heavy rainstorms, which they're expecting, I guess, later this week. So you want to make sure that the roof, siding, and gutters on your home are in good shape. You don't want mold or mildew in your attic or crawl space, or drip, drip, drip in your ceilings in any of your rooms, or have your walls damaged by a leaky gutter or bad siding. So don't have double expense. Sooner or later, you're going to have to get it taken care of. So call Best Brothers Roofing, Siding, and Gutter at 630-616-1359. Mike Besch will drive over in his shiny little red truck with ladders on top, and Mike will look over your roof, siding, and gutters and give you an estimate and go from there. So once again, friends, don't have double expense. Call Best Brothers Roofing, Sidings, and Gutters at area code 630-616-1359. That's Best Brothers Roofing, Siding, and Gutters at area code 630-616-1359. Call today for a free estimate, and Mike Besch will drive over, take a look at your needs, and give you an estimate and go from there. That's Best Brothers Roofing, Siding, and Gutters, area code 630-616-1359.
Back to our discussion. Tom?
Okay, we're back. Thanks for sticking around. We're talking about summers in Chicago and what we did when we were growing up, the fun things to do in Chicago. Most of us were from similar backgrounds where our parents struggled through to try to raise us, and they found different ways to get us around and entertain us during these summer months when we're out of school. Let's fast forward a little, moving on down to city of Chicago. You know, Chicago is pretty famous for its activities, parades, fests, summer fests. Taste of Chicago was big. That was started small, actually, as just a taste. I think it was, I believe, it was on Michigan Avenue. Then I think Jane Byrne, she moved it over to Navy Pier. And then when it left Navy Pier, it moved into Grant Park, and it became more of a combined food and entertainment.
What was the rationale a few years ago for cutting the number of days back on that? Well, the attendance was, I think, dropping a little bit.
Yeah, I don't know, but a lot of people, I know I had a friend of mine that had a booth there, and he gave it up. It isn't so much that he wasn't making money, it's just the profit, because he had to hire a lot of people, and then a lot of people didn't, they didn't want to work during the summer, and when you were there, you actually had to work, and a lot of people don't want to
in the heat.
Don't want to do that, and then you'd have to hire people for minimum wage, and then he was asking his friends to come and help, but Chicago, they, aside from the Taste of Chicago, the music festivals, and what's people like about the music festivals in Chicago is they're free.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Yeah.
and a lot of excuse me, a lot of venues and a lot of municipalities, when they have entertainment of that sort, it isn't free. The fireworks, July 4th fireworks,
Very expensive.
draws over a million people. And one unique thing about the city of Chicago is when they have things like that, they draw. I mean, people come here. It's hard to believe. People that live here, they take it for granted everything that the city of Chicago has to offer. But there are people born and raised here that have never been in one of the. We've got 5 world-class museums here, and then a whole bunch of smaller museums. The arts, they say that the theater community, the so-called off-Broadway theater community, is more vibrant in Chicago than it is in New York City, with all the different plays.
And that isn't anything new either. It's been going on for a long time,
right.
Tom.
A lot of neighborhood theaters are doing
Yeah.
that.
Music venues, opera, the Chicago Symphony. Myself being a musician, I still play with the pipes and drums of the Chicago Police Department, and also the Shannon Rovers pipes and drums. So I'm still playing. But the Chicago Symphony Orchestra, I tell people, if you have never been to a performance of the Chicago Symphony and you live in this city, you have to go at least once, because when you're sitting in that hall and that orchestra, Chicago, one of the world-class symphony orchestras, they crank up and they're doing something, a tune. It is really breathtaking. It actually takes your breath away, how powerful it is, and it's all. None of it is amplified. Naturally, they have a sound system, but basically, there's.
That building was made for that.
There's nothing electronic about it. It's all. It's live, and it's really powerful, and it's really something to hear.
My son-in-law worked and his whole family did. They were stagehands at the Civic Opera House.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's something else.
And we would get in there when they'd have a new play or a new venue coming up. What we would do is get in there on their dress rehearsal. We still had to pay a few bucks, but it was very cheap, and you had to have somebody in there. And that's where I got to know Father Dan Brandt's father and mother, because I took them to one day, and I forget, I don't remember what it was now, which one it was, one of the plays, and we've gone back several times, and they really like it. And I have always taken my kids to the different plays, Cats, Les Mis, and all of these things.
Oh, yeah, they have.
Chicago is known for that. When I worked at the old Sherman Hotel right down on LaSalle, there was a place called the Showman's Club, and that's where a lot of these actors, actresses, singers, and all of these people came in, the showmen. And the Sherman Hotel, we had a lot of different things there. What the heck was his name? The Breakfast Club, Don McNeil, and the breakfast. He had all people there, and he had all kinds of visitors, and got to meet a lot of them. And
there was a policeman who shall remain nameless that worked traffic at the Chicago Lyric Opera House, and he got friendly with some of the entertainers and the producers and directors, and his first name was Joe, and they said, Joe, you ever seen an opera? So they were doing, I think it was Rigoletto, famous opera, and this guy was Italian, and he tells a story when he brought his wife, I guess. So whoever gave him the tickets, they ran into him at the intermission, and they said, "How do you like it so far?" He says, "Man, this is fantastic." He said, "Wow, you really like it?" He says, "Yeah." He says, "Well," he says, "I guess you look like you're the happiest one here." He says, "I'm the only guy in this place that doesn't know how this thing ends."
I'm here to see how the ending is.
Yeah.
He's probably the guy that gave me a couple of tickets out there when we parked.
One thing that may be
quick.
hurting Chicago to some degree, especially among locals, is I think at least the perception that admittance to museums is pretty pricey now.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, I don't remember paying anything, not even a couple of bucks, which might have
Right.
been reasonable.
And
Now, you have pretty steep $15, $20 range admissions, but on the other hand, I think by law, they have to have 1 or 2 free days a month.
Yeah, 3 days, and then Chicago residents have reduced.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you have to
Probably
show them a
seniors, too.
driver's license or whatever.
A reduced rate.
Yeah.
Yeah, they. But again, people come from all over the world. Museum of Science Industry. I mean, the Art Institute. The Field Museum, Shedd Aquarium, Planetarium.
Right now, the big thing is it today. Is the anniversary of Apollo.
Right. And then
Is
talking
it today,
about
John? Yeah, and that's a big thing going on downtown at the conservatory.
yeah, and another thing, talking about the smaller museums built, the museum that you're affiliated with.
Yeah.
That's something that's unique.
Well, and there's a lot more. There's the Maritime. There's the Toy Museum. There's
Talking about the
Vietnam.
talking about a police museum, they just opened the National Police Museum in Washington, D.C. That was under production for years.
Oh yeah. Oh.
And I don't know if Chicago Police Museum, the last one that I remember was open, it was a police. This is before the FOP became the bargaining agent for the Chicago police officers. So there were like 3 or 4 different police organizations. And the Chicago Patrolmen's Association, Joe Pecoraro, I believe, was
He
the president
opened
of
it,
that.
yeah.
And he had that was the museum. It wasn't. I don't know if you were ever there. It wasn't anything elaborate.
I was.
But they had some old uniforms and some like the St. Valentine's Day massacre and the, John Dillinger getting shot. You know, stuff like that.
The old 19 was next to the firehouse, and I was at the 29 one day, and for some reason, and they found out it was about the museum, and there's a couple of coppers in there, and they said, well, oh, you're with the museum? He says, we got a guy that's starting a museum. Oh? Where? Right in the police station. I said, oh, I got to go over and see this. Well, he did. He had a couple of old uniforms and you know, stuff like that. And he had them on display, and I never did talk to the guy to see what went on, but I know that they disappeared, you know, when they changed 19. But this friend of Frank McManaman, the guy's name is Wallner. He lives in I guess that's Des Plaines. Yeah, got to be Des Plaines, right near Denny G's, and he's got he's retired. I don't know where he's retired from, but he's got in his basement. I went down there. He did something for. Oh, he made a. He's kind of a good woodworker, and he made a frame for me for something. I forget what it was. Did a great job. But while I was down there, he says, well, look around. And he's got a ton of police stuff. He's got like every uniform, complete. Every, the guns are on them, you know, the badges, all kinds of stuff.
A display of the evolution of police uniforms.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The guy is,
everything.
And not only that, he's got sporting stuff. He rents, I guess you call it that. He rents different sporting things out to taverns and bars. You know, when the season starts and that for them to display. And the guy is I don't know what's going to happen to that stuff. You know, that's always my fear when he digs in the ground. What's going to happen to all of that stuff? You know,
If you ever
that's
give-
where we get a lot of our stuff for our museum. Is when a guy dies and they don't know what to do with it. My thing is, don't throw it in the garbage. We'll take it. I don't care what it is.
Bill, I was just going to ask, have you ever given any thought to having a combined police fire museum?
I probably have. We talked about it. I talked about it with Klein. You know, when we were talking about this stuff, about getting a part of the old train station.
Oh, okay.
And now look at what they're doing to it now. I mean, they're really, really sticking some money in. And there was also a guy that's very active with the Chicago Maritime, with the marine type thing. Chicago's noted for that. So it was like, wouldn't it be nice to get everything there? And I talked to the people that I'm with and that, and no, we don't want to have anything to do with it.
Well, another thought is when and if they build a new combined police fire academy, there might have some space in there for some of the old stuff.
Exactly.
Because I know in the present police academy, there's a whole bunch of display cases as you walk in. The different organizations have like the pipes and drums of the Chicago Police Department. We have a display case in there with some of the trophies and pictures and stuff like that. But I mean, there's nothing really.
Well, isn't there still a display of badges of officers who lost their lives in the line of duty? Is that at 18th and State?
Well,
No,
both
that-
have them.
yeah.
The
Okay.
police and the
That-
fire.
Yeah.
both
That's
have 'em.
minimal. You've got to have that.
But it's in the headquarters building,
Yeah.
the Star case at 35th in Indiana.
That's the police, and ours is
Right.
at the fire academy.
Sure.
Yeah, no, that's...
Now, given
yeah,
the size of the city, I think the police and fire each worthy of their own museum.
Yeah,
It would seem that way.
yeah.
And they should get the support for that. Whether the FOP or somebody like that. You know.
The
Yeah, the FOP, their building, they don't really have. There's really not enough space there to do anything.
no, We got a few things as you come in on the wall. And that's about
They've
it.
got photographs and
Yeah.
things like that, but I mean, nothing is like an actual museum.
You know, in the fire academy, when we've talked about it, I don't know. It's of course it's a political thing. When they do, if they do, and when they do, build this combined police fire academy on Chicago Avenue, what are they going to do with the fire academy building? That would be just perfect for the museum. Just perfect.
That's prime real estate now.
Oh, that's it.
Yeah, when that was built, it wasn't.
What was it? What was the number of the station there at over by 55's house, John? Yeah.
19?
No, that wasn't 19. No, 19 was next to 29's house. This was by 55's house. There at Halsted and what is it, John?
What?
It's closed now.
The 9th district? 35th, it was at 35th and...
No. This was
up north.
Yeah.
The 23rd district.
where was
It
that?
Halsted and Armitage, I think.
No,
Just
this
east
was,
that's east of Wrigley.
this was about 3,300 north.
It's roughly Belmont.
Yeah.
Oh.
Anyway, that's what Klein says. Oh, he says, yeah, we'll get that. You did that in an old firehouse. We can do this, and because they're going to shut it down or move it. And I looked at him and I said, hey, Phil, that's prime property.
And what's the history, the rationale for the Park District having their own separate police force? There's got to be a story there.
Oh, yeah,
Well, that was all solid political.
Must have been.
yeah,
In Chicago?
yeah.
A lot of people don't understand the Park District Police. They patrol the boulevards and the parks.
Yeah.
And the major people, I know policemen that don't know this. All the major parks in the city of Chicago are connected by boulevards. You can get to every major park from the far north
That's
side
pretty
to
much
the far
true.
south
Yeah,
side
yeah.
on boulevards.
Yeah.
So the Park District, they had Lakeshore Drive, Park District Police, all the boulevards and all the parks. That was their jurisdiction.
Mm-hmm.
That's where my brother-in-law started. He
Right.
was a Park
You know,
District
Thomas, these
member.
police were armed.
Oh yeah.
They were armed.
Yeah.
Yeah,
as
they were
Chicago
sworn.
police.
They were
Okay.
sworn police officers.
Okay.
And but to show you how they were all politically connected, when they merged, almost all of them wound up getting prime assignments and advancing in rank.
Yeah.
And I think they merged around 57 or 1958, somewhere
Yeah, right.
in the late 50s, right?
Before
Before the famous Summerdale scandal.
Yeah,
broke.
and they also had downtown. They had all the boulevards like Jackson Boulevard and Michigan Avenue. I think was part of theirs. And then
Separate
Grand-
jurisdictions
and then
even
Grand Park.
downtown would make sense.
Yeah, and
boulevards,
they
yeah.
directed traffic. But then a lot of guys, like a friend of mine, his father was in the Park District. He directed traffic at, I think, Jackson Boulevard and Wabash. He was there for years. And when they merged, he just changed the patch on his shirt and kept the same spot.
Stayed there.
Yeah.
I'm thinking a little bit of when they formed the CTA and you had the old Chicago Motor Coach Company, whose job was to provide public transportation on the boulevards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden they were merged into the CTA. Well, I think in the around 53 or 4, something like that, maybe 52.
Can you imagine the political goings on there? Funny story when I got the 103's house from Ed Burke. We're walking through one day and we go up to the second floor, which was the bunk room for the firemen. And when they shut it down to build the new house for the fire department, they just left this firehouse go. Just the typical city, they just let it go. So Burke, that was in the 14th Ward, Burke said, "No, we're not going to let this go like this. We're going to do something here. We're going to put a new unit in here." So they did, and I'm trying to think of what they called it, what unit they called it. It was some, woe-begone unit. And later on, the guy that he assigned to stay with me when I had anything to do with the museum, we're walking through it, and he said, "Well, what are you going to do here, Bill?" And I said, "Well, I'm going to put new windows in, blah, blah, blah." And I said, "I can't figure out what to do over here." It was in the front of the second floor. It was like a little alcove. And I said, "I can't figure out what to do here." I says, "And I can't figure out what was here." And he kind of smiled, and so I knew that there was something that he wanted to tell me. So I got a little bit more out of him, and he said, "This was the finance office of the city of Chicago." Burke made this his finance unit. And he said there was a desk here. In fact, there was still a desk there, come to think of it, that's why. Desk there. And he said people that wanted to get their permits or whatever, they would come here. This was like little downtown, little bit. And I looked at him, and he said, "Oh yeah." He said, "Can you imagine in that desk all the money that went back and forth?"
Oh, man.
And I said, "Yeah, I can." Anybody that wanted a permit had to go there, and that's what it was. And then they shut it down, and they wanted to sell the place, and Ed didn't know what to do, so he gave it to me for the museum.
Yeah, for those of you listening that have been living under a rock for the last few months, the person we're talking about, Ed Burke, was alderman of the 14th Ward for I don't know how many years.
Oh boy,
40 years.
Called now the unofficial Chicago historian.
And he was.
What'll happen?
Him and some of his associates were just indicted, I believe.
Yeah.
Which is a
federal.
Federal indictment. And it's so puzzling to people that know Ed Burke. I mean, I know of him more than I know him, but I mean, I know him to say hello to him. And his wife, Ann, her maiden name was McClone, Ann Burke, who's a Supreme Court Justice in the state of Illinois now. She was a baton twirler in St. Rita's band. When I was in the band, my brother was in the band. So I mean, I go back a long way, and I know Bill can kind of attest to this, where anybody that knows him are there. I can say I'm not baffled about the history. What's baffling is why now, after all these years, when he is arguably a multi-millionaire, why he would continue with these nefarious, is that a good word, activities? I mean, shaking down a construction company, was building a Burger King. Supposedly they nicknamed him, his nickname now is the Whopper.
Well, often the argument is that these people, well up in age, well-to-do, they just don't know when to give up power.
Yeah.
It's habitual with them. And
yeah, there's all kinds of people. I mean, I know so many people that know him and know him better than I do. And some say, I don't know, did he lose it? I mean, has he got Alzheimer's? Is he, or is he just?
And what's the staff doing?
Yeah. And the staff, Pete Andrews, his right-hand guy, he got indicted too. And then I'm hearing all kinds of rumors about him. So. I guess it's all going to come out in the wash, but I mean, what a city! You got Bird. Then you hear shortly thereafter another alderman. They raided her office, a black female. Then
Austin,
Carrie Austin. I believe.
Yeah. Now they just, I think it was yesterday, they raided a former alderman, Zalewski, who was Madigan's.
Oh yeah, Mike
guy.
Zalewski.
Yeah, they raided his office, I mean, are you kidding me? I mean, are these people? These federal agents and federal investigators and prosecutors, they got to be looking at this and shaking their head and saying, is there something in the water in the city of Chicago that these people just don't get it?
Yeah. Will the noose ever tighten around Madigan himself?
Yeah,
It's
right.
hard to say.
You know, I mean, again, it's like on the police department. You know, in the old days in traffic in the police department, the big thing was you got stopped by the police, especially traffic guys. You know, you dropped a couple of bucks. That was the famous story about Mort Saul, the comedian. They asked him about, driving around the country, do you have any problems getting stopped by the police? And he says, no, actually, because what I do is when I get out of the car, I drop a $10 bill on the ground, and I say, oh, excuse me, officer, I think you dropped that 10. So he picks it up, and I go on my way. He said it worked until I got into the city of Chicago. I got stopped on Lakeshore Drive. This is supposedly a true story. And he said I got out, I did the same thing. I dropped a 10 on the ground, and I said, excuse me, officer, I think you dropped that 10. And the Chicago guy said, no, I dropped a 20.
And my dad would always keep a $5 bill, I think it only was, clipped to his
Right,
driver's
see,
license.
But the point that I was trying to make, in the old days, it was kind of accepted, so
Yeah.
what?
Oh,
But then
yeah.
when the police start making a decent salary, and it got, well, guys, you just bend, you say, well, those days are over. So I mean, if you get sworn in as an alderman, do you think you've got some dispensation to steal money? I know Burton Nateris, when he was alderman in the near north, there was became friendly playing with the bagpipe band. A guy by the name of Mike Gallagher was manager of Fado. The original Fado was in New York, and then they built one in Chicago. So one of their corporate people from New York called up and said, there's a charge on here that our attorneys want to know about $15,000 for near north consulting. Find out what that is. So he calls the Chicago guys, and they said, what's this $15,000 for near north consulting? He says, do you want to open? He goes, well, yeah, of course we want to open. He says, well, then pay it, because that's Burton Nateris's consulting firm. That was the fee.
Well, maybe. Now it's time for our final intermission. You've been listening to Meet the Chicago Historians.
Hello, friends. Do you need new tires for your vehicle? How are the brakes? Are they in good condition? How's your front wheel alignment? Do you need your tires rotated? How are the shocks and struts? Do you need an oil and grease change? How about a tune-up? When was the last time you had your engine tuned up? How about the wiper blades? Are they nice, sharp blades to clean off the rain and snow? How are the headlights, tail lights, stop lights, turn directional signals? Are all the bulbs working? How's your cooling system and the exhaust system? How about your battery? Does that need to be upgraded? How about the belts and hoses, fuel injectors, timing belt and chain, and the air conditioning? Is that all working properly? Well, if you need any maintenance work done on your vehicle, go to Grand Tire and Auto Service, which is located at 7034 West Grand Avenue in Chicago. They are on Grand Avenue on the north side of the street, about 2 blocks east of Harlem Avenue. You can't miss the building. There's a big Goodyear sign right on top of the building. Or you can call area code 773-622-4361. Don, Chris, or Ken will be more than happy to assist you and to help you with any questions you might have about the maintenance on your vehicle. Their hours are Monday through Friday, 7:30 to 7 o'clock in the evening. Saturday, from 7:30 in the morning until 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And even on Sunday, from 9:30 in the morning until 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So once again, for any maintenance work you might need on your vehicle, go to Grand Tire and Auto Supply. Once again, their address is at 7034 West Grand Avenue in Chicago, about 2 blocks east of Harlem Avenue on the north side of the street. And their phone number is area code 773-622-4361. They have great service. Their mechanics are all certified mechanics, and they do quality work. Now, I've been going to Grand Tire with my vehicle since 1985, right up until this present day. So once again, Grand Tire and Auto Service at 7034 West Grand Avenue in Chicago. Their phone number is 773-622-4361.
Now back to our discussion.
Okay.
Tom?
All right, we're back. This is our final segment. So we're going to wrap it up again talking about summers in Chicago. But during the break, we had a little mini conversation about, some things never end. And we were talking about some of our local politicians and aldermen who have been recently indicted or under investigation. And it's kind of, as a former police officer, it's kind of, I don't know what the word I'm looking for, unnerving, maybe. If I'm a burglary detective and you're my friend who is a known burglar, and believe me when I tell you this, there were a lot of combination police criminal friendships in the city of Chicago. Like they said, what's the four? You grow up, you're either a cop, a crook, a clergy, or I think there were four C's. But anyway, if I'm a burglary detective and you're a burglar, and I say, hey, look, we got a team that's got the 63rd and Pulaski area staked out because of the burglaries that are going on there. So just so for your own personal information.
Mm-hmm.
And then next week, I find out that you got arrested committing a burglary at 63rd and Pulaski. What am I going to say to you? Hey, you moron.
Yeah, you're stupid.
Didn't I just tell you? So these aldermen that are getting indicted, I believe, there's 50 aldermen in the city of Chicago. Supposedly there have been over 30 aldermen. Naturally, the council changed over the years, but there's over 30 aldermen that have been indicted or gone to jail. I mean, what is it? I mean, are they stupid? Are they? Do they need the money? Do they have drug habits, gambling habits? I mean, how could you possibly? It's like I said, it'd be like a policeman getting charged with taking $10 on a traffic stop. What are you, a complete idiot? You're going to blow a $90,000 a year job for a sawbuck?
Yeah.
And
now we're seeing the overreaction from Mayor Lightfoot. She wants to take so many of these powers away, zoning permits. What's an alderman left to do if she succeeds?
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's why because the talking politics in Chicago is so interesting. It's almost like a sport. Because in other parts of the country, it's difficult to find people to run for office. I mean, certain boards and the reason is, like you said, Rich, what's in it for me? The only reason that someone would want to be an alderman is because all the side money.
Or like stepping stone to higher office.
Like
that's
I just said, near North
Yeah.
Consulting. I know George Dunn, that was his insurance. You walk into an alderman's office, you're whatever type of business you have, and you're looking, and they say to you, you don't usually get to talk to the alderman first. You get to talk to, like with Ed Burke, you got to talk to Pete Andrews first.
Man.
Yeah. So, and the first questions are, gee, where's your tavern at? Or where's your restaurant at? Who's your insurance with? You know, or who's your legal who's your legal representative? Who does your taxes? You know, and if you don't give the right answer, or you know, if you don't say, well, gee, who do you have in mind? You know, you're out of luck. I heard a good one. A guy went. He said, "Yeah, I'm interviewed for tax attorneys." And they said, "How did it go?" They said, "Well, I just asked each tax attorney how much is 2 plus 2." He said, "How much is 2 plus 2?" He said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, did you find one?" He says, "Yeah." The fifth guy I interviewed, when I asked how much is 2 plus 2, he said, "I don't know. What do you want it to be?"
What do you want it to be?
He said, "That's the guy I hired."
Yeah. How true. How true. Oh boy. Tell
One
you
thing
what,
I think we've
dealt with
noticed
these
in recent years,
politicians.
far fewer taverns and bars in the city.
Yeah,
Mayor Daley, I think, was
yeah,
one who started
yeah, that-
cutting back on licenses.
yeah,
Now, is
yeah.
that a sign of the times because of
No,
as air conditioning is spread, people don't have to cool off at the tavern, they can stay
no,
home?
he did-
I wonder about
he
attendance
didn't
figures.
like him, and his wife didn't like him.
Just
That's why. Personal.
for their own Okay,
Yeah.
that makes much sense. You know.
A lot of people don't understand that now. In the old days, if you bought a tavern, the liquor license went with it automatically, unless you were a convicted felon or whatever. But then you'd have it under somebody else's name. But now that's not the case. They lost, you know, all the, like, for example, certain neighborhoods, the back of the yards, for example. I mean, there was like a tavern on every block.
Right.
Every neighborhood
Yeah,
had
and
their
it
own
was
neighborhood tavern.
it was like their own little private
Yeah.
club. There's very few. The only way that they can stay in there is if you're grandfathered into it,
Grandfather's clause,
or
okay.
a member of the immediate family
Mhm.
can retain the liquor license, or if the majority of your business is food service.
Okay.
The Sun Times is at least once a week has a page or two of that they have to put on advertising who is looking for a liquor license.
Yes, you see this. That's right.
Yeah.
You're in the
And-
want ad
yeah.
section.
Most of them are corporations.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, there's very few individually. When I had a place on 63rd in Kildare, east of Midway Airport, when this was 40 years ago, almost. About 40 years ago. There were seven taverns. Well, a couple of them were restaurants, but there were 7 bars within walking distance of my house. There was one right on the corner of 63rd and Kildare. The next corner east, there was 2 bar, kitty corner, and then 2 doors down. On the next corner, there were 2 across from one. There was only 2 left. One is because it's a guy was from Poland. He died, and his wife runs it, and their only source of income, and she can't sell it because people want the liquor
That's the
license.
story, yeah.
So she kept that, and then the other one was a Mexican restaurant, but they were all and then another one all the way down, just off of Cicero. A guy's mother had the liquor license, and she died, but she was able to transfer it to the son, and the son is running it. So that's the only way.
I wonder what prices are involved nowadays if you wanted to start a bar between the liquor license and maybe food service. It must be
A lot.
thousands.
Oh,
It
yeah.
must be in the
Housing,
thousands.
yeah,
Frightening. Yeah.
The when I was director of the Illinois Bureau of Racetrack Police, I had 2 Chicago guys, and they were they were the investigators for the liquor license, and I can't think of their name. Boy, I can place their face. Can't think of their names now, which is not important. But
Yeah, and they want to know where the money's coming from.
well, they
Well, you know.
yeah they every so often and I let the guys take a break every so often, and if they weren't together, but they'd get together, and you could see them talking over in the corner about things, and I thought, oh boy, I wish I was a fly on the wall over there.
Well, every area, not district, but area used to have a liquor license guy. And in order to get the liquor license in the old day, the district commander had to sign off on it, and then the liquor license guy, he was supposedly the guy that did the investigation of where the money's coming from.
Yeah.
And the bottom line was, where is the money that you were going to give me coming from?
Was the alderman a big part of it in the old days? I mean,
Oh, sure.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
They all had to sign off on it.
wow.
That was the big thing with the bar owners. If you had a complaint, if there was a crime committed on the premises, then that was a mark against you and a reason that you could be denied your liquor license renewal, or the price of the liquor license would skyrocket.
Yeah.
So the big thing was, if there was a fight in your bar, the big thing, the field lieutenant would come on, or even the district commander would come down and make sure that the location of the fight was on
outside.
outside on the sidewalk, not inside the bar.
Yeah.
And let the neighbors complain about noise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Strange. And how much more would it cost to keep your bar open, let's say, until 4 a.m.?
Well,
The price of
there's only a few
Yeah.
4 o'clock licenses left. I don't think money-wise it was more, but I know on the south side there used to be 2 of them on 63rd Street, and none of them are. Actually, there were 3 of them, and not one of them is still in business. They were all bars.
Oh.
But up on the north side, where I'm at now, there's one on Harlem, on Higgins, just east of Harlem, and then there's another one on Milwaukee, west of Central, west of Central, north of Foster. And it's funny, that place, the one on Milwaukee, you can drive by, you'll see the bartender, maybe 1 or 2 patrons. After 2 o'clock, you can't get in the place.
I remember Fishman's
And it's got
on
a 4 o'clock
Milwaukee.
license,
Yeah.
Tom? Oh, yeah.
Bill, maybe you know this place too. Fishman's on Milwaukee, just south of Lawrence. They
Oh,
would
yeah.
be open early in the morning, like they were maybe 24/7. It seemed.
Yeah.
Now they've moved to 6 Corners, and I have no idea what's going on with them now.
Yeah, and they
Near the Portage
We
Theater.
had a couple of firemen there from from 108's house that were steady customers in there.
yeah,
was
there's
a unique
good
place,
old-
I remember,
4
yeah.
o'clock, and then you can stay open until 5 on Saturday.
Huh.
Saturday night.
Oh.
Yeah, but it was so funny. I knew policemen and bar owners that used to argue with me about, you hear, well, it's a 2 o'clock license, so you can stay open as long as you're not charging, and you say, nonsense. And I used to tell, finally, I used to just tell them, I said, I'm not going to get in an argument with you. But now you can look it up online, go in the city ordinance and what it states. If your license is for 2 a.m., it's not 2:05. It's not let the people finish their drinks. It's not. It's 2 o'clock. The only people that can be in a liquor license establishment after, if you have a 2 o'clock license or after 4 o'clock license, are employees, the owner, or members of, it specifically says members of his immediate family. This is like a throwback to when the old family-owned owned bars. But I've gotten arguments with owners that said, "Oh no, and you can still serve as long as you don't charge." I said, "Please,
Stupid word way to run.
please, that is not correct. Now think what you want to think, but read the ordinance. It's very specific. 2 o'clock, doors got to be locked. Everybody's got to be out of there, except employees and members of their immediate family."
And would an officer frequently come to enforce this?
Very rarely.
You want-
Most of those are complaint-driven.
Okay.
Or in the old days, it was a money-making opportunity for law enforcement. You'd see a bunch of people drink, and they knew the bar owner. Hey, what do you want to do?
Yeah.
Gee, I really appreciate it if you could, I mean, that was
Stay away,
that was
yeah.
the Chicago way.
Yes, yeah.
In the I mean, in the old days, you know, you stop a guy for DUI. You know, where were you drinking? I was drinking at this joint over here. Okay, get in the back. Pull up in front of the tavern. You walk in. Yeah. Anybody know the guy sitting in the back seat of my squad car? Oh yeah, that's yeah. Well, you know.
He just left here.
Yeah. Well, what do you want to do? Well, what can we do? Okay. And then the negotiations went on, and then they said, copper would say, okay, here's his keys. His car is parked. I'm taking him home. Have a nice day. And that's just the way it was.
You know, I think a lot of these places, the BYOB thing, kind of killed
Yeah.
some of
That's
these
a good point.
bars. You
Yeah,
know,
you're right. I think you're right.
and you just made that statement. Here's a little story of the Northwest Siders would know. There's a place on Northwest Highway, almost in the Park Ridge, Seward's Funeral Home, and I was there for a wake and with the family for somebody. You know, we were close.
Sounds like
to.
Edison Park, something like
And
that.
it's in Edison Park.
Yeah.
And then there's a when I was leaving there to go home, I had to go east, and I went by this one tavern, and the guys were in there. Fire. I don't know what was going on. There was some kind of a retirement party going on, and
Yeah, there's a lot of police and fire in that area.
yeah, and they were, you know, they were whooping it up. They went by. Oh, hey, you know, it was a nice night. Come on in. I said, no, I'm going home. So I went, but I could tell the guys were really wacky. So I stopped at 16. 16 is right on the way home, and I knew a couple of the guys in there, and you know, Tom had to be working, and I went in, and I was just going to tell him. I says, hey, there's a party going on.
Right.
Tell your guys to take
Right.
it easy, and,
Yeah.
and because they'll be coming that way. He says, Bill, he says, it's too late.
Uh-oh.
He says, what are you talking about? He says, come on. Back in the lockup.
Oh, brother.
3 firemen, and you could tell their noses weren't red because they were Santa Claus, you know. And so I got Tom. Hey, Bill, how are you? Come on.
Yeah.
I said, yeah. I'll be right with you guys. So they were from not close. They were, you know, like Belmont and Central or wherever it was where they lived and where they came from. So Tom told me what was going on. He says, yeah, he says, one of our squads was behind them, and he said they were all over the road. He says, bing, 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 zigzag.
Probably saved their life,
But-
or worse yet, killing somebody else.
Yeah.
That's the real terrible
So
thing.
he brought him in. We got him in here, and I says, what are you going to do? He says, I don't know. He says, what do you want to do? I said, where's their car? He says, we got it locked up over there. He says, I got the keys on the wall. Oh, yeah? I said, I'm going to go back there and talk to them. Did they have anything on them that they shouldn't have had? No. He said, no. He said, they're just drunk. So I went back there and I talked to them, and I find out where they lived, the guy with the car, where he lived. And I said, you guys got any money on you? Oh, sure. You know, we were just going to another place, you know. Come on, come up. Well, they figured I was going to pay off the coppers. It was like maybe $140 or something like that between the 3 of them. I said, sit down, take it easy, sober up. So I went out and I talked to Tom, and I said, there's always cabs around here, around the Jefferson Park station. I said, would you have a guy going out there and bring a cab around? I said, where's their car keys? He says, here. I says, let me have them. He called for a cab, and I went back there and talked to these guys, and I said, you're going home. Oh, that's
that?
good, Bill. That's okay. He says, I'll be careful. You know, the guy, the driver.
Yeah.
I said, yeah, I know you will, because you won't be driving. I said, you can ride shotgun if you want. What are you talking about? With that, the cab driver comes in. I give the guy the money. I said, here's the address. You take these guys, and here's the keys. You take these guys to this address, and no stopping. Take them right to this address. They all lived within a couple of blocks, I suppose, whatever it was. And they're all kind of looking at me like, you know, what's going on? He said, go get in the cab. Grabbed the cab driver again. I said, you give them the keys when you get them home. You get them to this address. Then you give them the keys.
For their own safety.
All right?
Yeah.
Okay. So the guy made himself, it was like $140 and that. I told Tom, I said, they'll be back tomorrow. I said, don't let them in that car, you know, if they come right back. Okay. And he smiled and he says to me, he says, thank you. They didn't want to do anything to him either, you know.
Yeah, right. It's, you know.
And I said, but watch out for the contingent that may be coming back.
Storm the Bastille.
Yeah.
I think it's very hard for a lot of us to imagine, especially you younger millennial types who might be listening, to what degree the neighborhood bar and tavern was a social center.
Oh yeah, and you could walk. You know, you didn't have to
If
drive.
you weren't very religious, and maybe you didn't know much about the Lions and the Kiwanis and that sort of thing in service clubs, that was your social center
Right.
after work.
Exactly. Yeah.
A guy, let's say, is finishing off 6 days in a row working a 12-hour shift at the stockyards. He may not want to go home right away to face the wife or discipline the kids. He's going to get a drink or two at the bar.
And there were stretches on Ashland Avenue across on the west side of Ashland, across from the yards. There was one that block. I think it had five bars, and similar across from the mills, out on Torrance, like 107th or in that area. There were like 10 bars within a two block area, and it was all guys.
They did a good
They
business.
got through with the mill, just walked right across the street,
Yeah.
started drinking.
Didn't we lose Schulian's? I think it was the big bar in Ashland near the stockyards. That's been gone for a few years now.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. And there was Schulian's on what was it on?
What's that one on Irving that had the
Irving.
magic trick?
Irving,
That was
yeah.
Schulian's. The wagon wheel.
might have the name
Wagon
wrong.
wheel was
Yeah.
on Ashland by the yards.
Yeah.
That was famous
There's a
for years.
daily hangout, I think, of sorts, too,
Yeah.
not far from the neighborhood.
Yeah, that Schulian's over there.
That's
that,
on Irving.
I hear. I don't know
Yeah,
anymore.
that's not.
I don't
Yeah,
go
it's
there.
not. It's something else.
Well,
But
they
those
were going
German
to have somebody in there.
Yeah,
you know,
but it's not Schulian's anymore.
No.
Those bars, Reese's and Latchett's.
Oh,
Those
yeah.
are two big German.
Lachette.
Latchett's.
Yeah.
They have.
It's just something like a German meal on Irving near
Yeah.
Damon.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was an old.
Lachette is a
an old German.
is a hangout for Larry Duhigg, buddy of mine.
They had pretty good food there the last time.
Yeah.
Reese's had good food
Yeah.
too. You know.
A lot of beer choices.
Yeah.
That's why Larry's there.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I think the German American Police Association have their meetings at that.
That
Lachette.
could be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's still such a thing as a German American police. That
Oh, yeah.
must be fun.
Yeah. Another guy that's with us on Wednesdays is Bill Grebe. He's very active with the German GAPA.
Because as a kid, the old German neighborhood was Lincoln, Ashland, Belmont.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's all changed.
Kenny Hauser, who was on our pension board, he's half Irish and half German.
There's a mix.
I used to tell him, I says, "What do you get drunk and then decide who you're going to declare war on?"
I tell you what, that was what we used to tell. My wife was Irish. I'm German, and when my mother-in-law, God rest her soul, would introduce me to some relations or whatever it is, he says, "Oh, this is Bill. This is Barbara's husband. He's really a nice. He's not Irish, but he's a really nice guy."
Yeah, they have to apologize.
Yeah.
Yeah, the whole story of World War II was approaching and the Nazis were controlling Germany. whose sympathies did the real Irish lie with? They certainly had no reason to love the British.
Well,
And, well, Germany, I don't know. Maybe, so that's why I think Ireland stayed officially neutral in World War II.
my aunt told me one day, my mother never told me this, but my aunt, her sister, told me one day, she says, Bill, you know what? He says, your father is German. He says, but you know what? You almost became the son of a Nazi. And I said, what are you talking about, Aunt Joan? He says, your mother was going with a guy that when all this stuff broke out, went back to Germany and joined the Nazi army.
Well.
That's what they found out. He said,
Era of
he
Lindbergh
said-
and
she said-
isolationism.
she says, thank God she wasn't pregnant. Oh, boy.
Yeah, okay. Gentlemen, this about ends our session for today. We're right about at time.
No,
Wait a
wait a minute now.
Whoa.
We made,
Sorry, Johnny, what
we
you're
made a comment, tomorrow is John's birthday.
Oh,
He's,
that's
minus 18. Turn 18 around. He'll be 81 tomorrow, and we have a
81.
cake here.
You made the big old.
And we're going to have a cake before we leave this underground establishment. So happy birthday, John.
Here,
Yeah,
here.
happy-
And all you
happy-
listeners,
happy birthday, John.
give John your best wishes by thought, too.
Yes.
Thank you very much,
He's quite a guy
gentlemen.
keeping this thing going for many years. No.
All set, Rich?
We got 2 minutes, but okay. Now, wait. Recordings of previous Meet the Chicago Historians programs are available for your listening pleasure via the internet at www.windycityhometown.com. A special thank you to the executive producer of Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network, John Seconda. Thank you, John, for your support. On behalf of everyone associated with our Historians program, we thank you for listening. This is your announcer, Rich Lang. So long until next month. Thank you again, and best wishes. And keep John in your thoughts.
Well, thank you very much, Rich. You have been listening to Meet the Chicago Historians from the John DeVito Broadcast Center on the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network on Monday, July the 15th, the year 2019. This broadcast was produced and directed by John DeVito, and our special thanks to the executive producer of Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network, Mr. John Seconda. This program was pre-recorded on Monday, July the 15th, the year 2019. Thank you very much, and thanks for all the great happy birthday wishes from everybody. Thank you very much. Everybody is my friend.